Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. Welcome back to another episode of the Xbox Zone. This week I'm going to start looking through the vast library of Xbox 360 titles for those games that I feel you really should try. I played and completed some of these back when they were released, and some others are new to me as well, so it will be a lot of fun discovering some new favourites as well as revisiting the classics. In this episode, I'm taking a look at Alice Madness Returns, which I have had in my collection for several years but only played through properly over the last few weeks. Way back in the year 2000, the talented game designer American McGee, who had previously created levels for games like Doom and Quake at id Software, decided to make a full game of his own, based around Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. It was a dark and twisted new take on the story, which touched upon themes of mental illness and post-traumatic stress disorder. The game was quite well received by PC owners, though as it was never ported to any of the consoles of the day, it never really had a huge following. As such, it was quite a surprise when a sequel was released in 2011, once again on the PC and also on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The story of Alice Madness Returns follows on directly from the events of the first Alice game. A terrible fire ravaged Alice's family home and killed all of her family, leaving her in a very delicate mental state. Whenever she is faced with something she is unable to cope with, she retreats into Wonderland in her mind.
Come now, Alice. It's only a dream.
It's not a dream, it's a memory. And it makes me sick.
Now, focus. Wait. You're floating again. Weightless. A cipher. Relax.
I'm in hell.
Forget it. Abandon that memory. It's unproductive. Go to Wonderland.
If anything, Wonderland is now in an even more broken state than it was in the previous title. In an act of revenge for being horrifically tortured and mutilated by their old friend the Mad Hatter, the Dormouse and the March Hare have broken Hatter into pieces and scattered his limbs all around his domain. There is also a strange inky corruption spreading throughout the land and rumours of an evil force that has taken control of the infernal train. It's up to Alice to traverse the dangerous districts of Wonderland and find out what is responsible for the terrible state of the world. In between each main level, Alice will find herself back in the real world of London, where she can chat with her friends and try and get to the bottom of exactly what caused the fire. While the first Alice game did feature some platforming elements, they were far from perfect. It was really the combat that was the best part. Thankfully, Madness Returns received a complete overhaul, both mechanically and visually. This time the platforming feels really good, easily on par with games like Banjo-Kazooie, where platforming is the main focus. Jumping and gliding around the stages feels really natural and responsive, and the design of the stages is really fun. You will be constantly navigating enjoyable platforming puzzles, both on the set path to the end of the stage, and also for tons of secret areas. Very early in the game you will gain access to the ability to shrink, which also grants you shrink sense. You'll be using this power constantly throughout the game in order to see hidden platforms and other secrets. Madness Returns is also absolutely crammed to the gills with collectibles. There are memories and bottles hidden around every corner, thousands of teeth that can be picked up and spent on weapon upgrades, and also pig snouts to find. After you get hold of the pepper grinder weapon right at the start, you can then fire the pepper at these pig snouts. Every time you do, something will change in the level, usually leading to one of the other collectibles. When I played through the game, I really did my best to find every secret collectible I could find, but I still missed a fair few of them. For those who like tracking down every single collectible in a game and completing it 100%, finding all these things will probably add quite a few hours of playtime to the game. Combat is still most definitely an important part of the gameplay too, and it can get pretty challenging after a while. More and more enemy types will be introduced as you proceed, each of which requiring their own strategy to deal with. Sometimes you will need to carefully time a dodge move to get behind them and slash them with your vorpal blade. Other times you may need to perfectly time a block with your parasol and send back their own fireball, breaking their defences at the same time. Dealing with just one enemy type at a time isn't too bad, but when the game starts mixing them up, things can get pretty tough, especially earlier in the game. Later on, when you have your full arsenal of weapons and have powered each of them up with the teeth you've been collecting, the game gets considerably easier. You also have the option of changing the difficulty. There are easy, normal and hard options. Alice Madness Returns is a really nice looking game, full of vibrant colours and eye-popping design. Because it's running on a version of Unreal Engine, there is still a little bit of irritating texture drawing whenever you move to a new area, but this is not really a fault of the game. The game looks and runs even better when played via backwards compatibility on the Xbox One, which is how I played it. I already owned a physical copy of the game, but it can also be played as part of EA Access, and considering how cheap it is for a month of access, I really recommend that you do that if it's an option. I do have to call out the sound design as well. I thought the music was amazing, especially in combat. The constant percussion really feels menacing and oppressive, which fits the theme of the game and the visuals really well. The voice acting is also very solid throughout. I have no qualms about the sound at all. Let's get on to value. If you do go the EA Access route, then for a $5 you're looking at about 15 hours worth of interesting gameplay, assuming you finish the game within a month. Of course, you don't really own the game if you do this. If you would like to keep it, Microsoft are asking 15 quid for a digital download, which I think is a bit steep for a game this old. Having looked at current prices for a physical disc, however, then the digital price may be pretty fair. You are looking at 20 quid or more for Madness Returns on disc, unfortunately. When I picked it up 3 or 4 years ago, it was only about a £5. It is worth pointing out that you do get access to the first Alice as well as part of the package. Originally, you only got this if you bought the special edition of the game or paid for DLC, but now it's a free download for everybody who owns the game. The first game is a bit rough nowadays, but worth checking out, and it even contains its own set of achievements. Overall, Alice Madness Returns is a way better game than I gave it credit for originally. I thoroughly enjoyed the campaign from beginning to end. The platforming sections were as enjoyable as any other dedicated platformer that I've tried within the last decade or so, and the combat was always shaking things up and finding new ways to make you think. I would award the game a solid score of 8 out of 10 as a result, and easily recommend it to anyone who thinks they may enjoy it. That brings us to the end of another episode. Have you played Alice Madness Returns, or are you now thinking about doing so? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, I really would appreciate a like or a share on social media. There are plenty more videos just like this one coming soon, so please consider subscribing to RMGB TV as well if you would like to see them. See you again in the next video, and in the meantime, take care.
Thank you.